Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. So today I am doing part 2 of the felted flower. Part 1 was making the stem. So let's get started. For supplies, you're going to need whatever wool you want for your flower, which is not a lot. You're going to need something to put in the center. I use neps. You could pretty much use anything. If you don't have neps, you could use black wool, hot water, of course your squeegee ball, soap, and your felting netting. So let's get started. So I make my flowers about 5 inches in diameter. I find that's a good size, especially if you're making a poppy, which this is going to be. Just a standard poppy. You can make your flower any color you want. I really like the poppies. So what you're going to do is you're just going to start by roughly laying out, there's no particular way, a rough circle of about 4 to 5 inches. You could even make them bigger. I like about the 5-inch mark. And then the nice thing with these flowers is if you have lots of odds and ends of wool from different projects, it's a good way to use them up. And as you can see, I have several different colors. I find using different colors really adds a nice depth to the flower itself. So just go along and add your bits of wool in a fairly round circle. It doesn't have to be. I find the less perfect, the more realistic it looks. So some rough edges and just lay your wool in different directions. And that is so that it just gives a little bit of extra strength when you're wet felting. Different colors. I even have a couple of different types of wool. I have some merino, I've got some Corriedale. So just all the different fibers and color shades add such a nice contrast. Some more of this nice red. And again, there's no particular right way or wrong way of laying your fiber. Just do your thing and have fun with it. There we go. So in terms of thickness, there's again no real set rule on how thick you want it to be. It should be thick enough that it's not going to have holes in it after you've wet felted. It's kind of hard to tell, but when you pick it up, you should be able to see through it a little bit. Now, also keeping in mind that this part that we're working on right now is the top, and we're going to flip it over, so you can always add some more fiber on the back. It's a little thick there. All right, so I think we're getting there. So again, about between 4 and 5.5 inches in diameter is a good size. So now, this is a poppy, as I'd mentioned, so I'm using black neps, which I'll try to center as much as possible. And then, of course, a little bit of yellow in the center, as poppies are. There. Now, what I do when I'm using neps is I find sometimes that neps will move around or they'll fall off when you're wet felting. So I get a very, very thin layer, like as you can see, that's really thin, and I just place it on top this way and then the opposite way, and that just, when you've wet felt, that just locks them in and you can still see the color through. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll flip it over and we'll add a little bit more fiber on the back. If you see any spots that you can kind of see through a little bit more than others, just fill those in with a bit of fiber. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. This is such a fun and easy project, and the flowers are so realistic once they're all finished. All right, I think that should be good. Get that little nep out of there. Maybe put a little bit more right here. All right, so now once you have finished designing and creating your flower head, you're going to get your stem. So if you remember back to part 1, the top part of the stem, which is the leaves, are dry. That's the part we didn't get wet. And you're just going to kind of open them up right till you can feel the end of your bamboo. Just going to open it up. If you can imagine or picture a flower, it's got those flowers, it's got those leaves on the underneath. So you're going to open it up, and then the very center, you're going to center in your flower, right where your neps would be on the other side. And you just put it in there, just sit it there. You don't have to press hard, just kind of hold it there. Get some nice hot water. I like to use fairly hot water because it helps it to shrink and agitate quicker. Just put a little hot water there. And of course, the important soap, so your fingers are nice and slippery. Get some soap on your fingers and just pat. Don't rub, just pat. Especially around where your stem has attached to the flower, where the grain is. It's important that we make sure that that attaches correctly. You don't want a wobbly flower head. Now you'll see too that you've got some loose bits of wool along the edge. You can leave that, or you can just sort of push it in. If you push it in like this, it gives it a bit of a more rippled look with a finished flower. I like to push mine in, and gives it a nice natural look to it. But again, you can leave it if you like. So now what we're going to do is get lots of soap on your hand, because you don't want your wool to stick to your hand. And you're going to gently rub around the green, on the green, around the stem, because it's very important to make sure your green attaches properly to the flower head. And you want to make sure it's centered. I mean, if it's a little off center, it's not the end of the world. It's still going to turn out and look great. There. So once that's sudsed up a bit, you can grab your netting. You don't have to use netting, but I find if you want to agitate a little harder and quicker, then it's probably best to use the netting at this point, because your wool hasn't completely felted yet. So add a bit more hot water, just keep it nice and warm, and just agitate. And again, it's really important to spend a bit of extra agitation time on your leaves where your stem attaches, so that your flower head isn't going to be wobbly or fall off. So just agitate for a while. This doesn't take a lot of agitating like a regular wet felting would, simply because it's very thin, quite thin, and it's a smaller piece. And I just find, in using the hot water opposed to, lukewarm water, I find it felts quicker. So again, just work that stem and the leaves in. And then now you can take this off and just go in more circular motions. Again, just keep focusing on that center a little bit. Just all around. This is when the third hand would come in handy. There. So you can see how it's already started to felt. Okay, so what we can do now, after you've done a bit felting, is don't pull up on the stem. Lift the edge of the petal and flip it over. Now you can see my neps aren't quite in the dead center, but they're good enough. So now turn your gauze back over and just give it some more agitation. You can be a little rougher with it now because it's started the felting process, so give it a good bit of fulling. These are so much fun to make because they're so realistic looking, and you can use any color combination under the rainbow. And they're quick to make, and they're just, everybody just loves them. I haven't met anybody that doesn't like them. So now what you want to do is you can actually now bring your petals all up, so it looks like a rosebud almost, but just agitate along the sides. And then I do a quarter turn. This bit right here, right where the stem meets the flower, I always make sure I give extra agitation right there, because this is where this part has to be strong to hold up your felted flower head once it's all finished. So I just give this area a little extra agitation. I do a quarter turn, give it a little rub, quarter turn, little rub, quarter turn, little rub. Then you can do a bit agitation of your stem. At this point now, you're just basically shrinking your wool and making it a little tighter. You can work your flower head. I dip it into the water, the hot water sometimes, and give it a slight squeeze and just, again, just agitate it well. Open it up and make sure your hands are sudsy. Just, again, sometimes the odd nap will come off, but you can just put it to the side. So at this point, you're just folding it. Doesn't take much. There we go. There we go. So that's pretty much it. I mean, you can keep folding it longer if you like. It's just going to get a little smaller. I'm happy with this size. So now what I'm going to do is, you want to hold it so that you cup the flower like so. And you just want to press in, and what this does is it just rounds out the center of the flower, and you can see how it starts to look like a real flower. So what I do is I'm going to take this to the sink now and rinse out all the soap, and then I will show you how to shape them before it starts to dry. Alright, so we're back. So all I've done is I've just rinsed my flower really well under cold water. Doesn't have to be hot, but cold, hot. Rinse the soap out really well. So now we have this wet flower, and you want to shape it somewhat before it dries. So some people actually let it dry like this, so it looks like a partially opened flower. Of course, I prefer to have mine open. So what you're going to do is you're just going to make like a circle with your pointer finger and your thumb, and you're just going to hold the flower there like that, and then press it in. It just kind of rounds it out a bit, so it gives it that even more realistic look. And then you can hold it like that, and then just press the petals down. And then sometimes I just scoop it up a bit, and then I'll have it at about this point, and I'll just lay it somewhere to dry. I have it on my fireplace, and slowly as it dries, I will check on it and just kind of open it up a bit. And then when it's dry, you're going to have this beautiful, very realistic looking flower. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I want you to have a great day, and we'll see you soon.